Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal. It's Thursday. I hope you're all enjoying your week. Not too long to go now until the weekend and the return of Premier League football, of course. Champions League has dominated the agenda so far this week. Manchester City absolutely destroying Real Madrid last night. 4-0. They beat the European champions. So Arsenal went one better at the Etihad. Who knows? Real Madrid should have chucked on Rob Holding. They could have got themselves a consolation goal in the game. Unbelievable performance from City, who are just on another level to anything else in Europe right now. Blew Real Madrid away. I saw some of the stats from that first half yesterday. Just utterly ridiculous. I think Real completed 14 passes in the first 15 minutes. Only one pass in there. Manchester City half, it was just, like men against boys. It was unbelievable. Full credit to Manchester City. Of course, all said with the big caveat hanging over their heads of about 115 odd charges from the Premier League. But until that's come to a conclusion, what can you do? You can just sit back and admire the football, and the football is fantastic because Pep Guardiola is a genius and his team are just better than anyone else on the planet right now, and they showed that yesterday. But anyway, enough about Manchester City and their seemingly blatant treble that is on the cards. But let's talk about Arsenal, shall we? And look ahead to Saturday's game at Nottingham Forest. Tricky game on a lot of levels, really. I think Forest get a win, Forest stay up. Arsenal have to win to they have to avoid defeat to keep the Premier League title dream alive for another 24 hours before Manchester City win it on Sunday against Chelsea, which they will. But so it's going to be an interesting one. How mentally Arsenal sort of react to what happened last weekend. Do they have the fight to go again and pick up 6 points between now and the end of the season? I hope they do, because it'd be good to finish the season as strongly as possible. You don't want it to end on a bit of a whimper, on a down note. But I'm sure mentally they've been absolutely rocked by what happened at the weekend and the manner of the defeat. And, after such a long season to lose it, it's emotionally, I'm sure they're drained. Mentally, I'm sure they're drained. But it's Mikel Arteta's job to have picked them up this week and to spend a lot of time working with them on the training ground to get them ready for Forest. It's going to be a very raucous atmosphere at the City ground. 5:30 kickoff. Like I said, Forest get a result, they'll stay up. And so it's going to be 1-11 atmosphere. Forest very, very good at home. Obviously dreadful away, but very good at home. So it's going to be a difficult game for Arsenal. No Gabriel Martinelli. He's injured. David Ornstein reported last night that he's out for the season, which is no great surprise. I think that was blatantly obvious after the way he sort of limped off and was in his protective boot afterwards. After the game, he's got ankle ligament damage. And it's going to be out for some time. Fortunately, there's only 2 games left of the season, but the key thing for Arsenal is just making sure Martinelli now comes back fit and is ready for pre-season. I've spoke about it with Saliba as well, and it's so important to get players ready for pre-season, because if you miss pre-season or you come in right at the end of it, then you're just scrambling to get your fitness up. You're not ready for the start of the season. You're way behind your teammates, and it does have a big impact. We've seen it before with players who have come back sort of late on in the summer, how long it takes them to get up to speed and to get to sort of same level as everyone else has. So it's really important that they can get Martinelli fit and ready for the start of pre-season, which hopefully they can. And the same with William Saliba, who actually we'll talk about a little bit later on in this video. And I think that'll be really important. So there's going to be no Martinelli at the weekend against Nottingham Forest, which we were all expecting. Obviously there's no Zinchenko with his injury, and no Saliba with his back injury as well. So a few sort of selection issues coming up for Mikel Arteta, sort of looking at what he is going to do for this game at the City ground. I mean, the simple answer when it comes to Martinelli, you just expect it's going to be Trossard coming in, which, when Trossard starts, Arsenal tend to play very, very well. So I've got no issue with that. Didn't have the best of games against Brighton. I don't know if his head was a little bit all over the place, given it was against Brighton and everything that had gone on there. Had a chance at 0-0 when he hit the bar. Probably should have done better, I think, with that one. Although it did take a slight deflection, so maybe it would have gone in if it hadn't have done that. But still, had a very good season since he's come in, Trossard. So I think he'll just slot in. And other than that, I think it'll be interesting if he does make any changes, Mikel, in terms of what happened at the weekend, some of the performances. Does he change things up a little bit? Does he look at that? Ben White really struggled, but what can you do? You can't play anyone else other than Ben White, and Ben White's been so solid. Other than that, I think you probably keep with him in the team. Kivior obviously had a been a horrible moment for that first goal, which still just looks weird every time I see it. I don't understand what he was doing there, going down like that. Yes, maybe it was contact. He lost his shoe and his boot, and it might have hurt a bit, but I still don't think you need to go down like that in the middle of the penalty area when Brighton are on the attack. But anyway, it's been and gone now. Does something happen with Kiwior? Do you take him out after that? I don't think you do. I think you probably stick with him. So I just look at that sort of Trossard for Martinelli and wonder if that's all we're going to see. Ramsdale definitely going to be in goal. I imagine it's going to be Ben White, Kiwior, Gabriel, and Kieran Tierney. Do you keep with Jorginho instead of Thomas Partey? Probably, I would say Jorginho, Odegaard, and Granit Xhaka. And then the front three, I think, is blatantly obvious going to be Saka, Jesus, and Leandro Trossard. Maybe you could bring Thomas Partey back in to the side, but I don't think Jorginho is bad against Brighton by any means. So I'd probably stick with the same. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. Who would you want to see in a starting 11? Do you think Mikel needs to make a few changes? Do you bring in someone like Reece Nelson, who's looked very, very bright every single time he's come on recently? Do you give him a start, maybe, instead of Trossard on the left-hand side? Personally, I'd probably go with Trossard, but I wouldn't really have too much of a problem with seeing Nelson start because I think he's done very, very well. The only issue is it really worth starting someone who potentially looks like he's going to be off in a couple of games' time anyway. So, do you really need to do that? I don't know. Wait and see. I mean, Arsenal are trying to keep Reece Nelson, so it might help with that if you start him. But I can't imagine that'll be at the forefront of Mikel Arteta's mind when he's making his team selection. So let me know anyway what you would do in the comments below when it comes to the starting 11 and who you want to see play against Nottingham Forest at the weekend. Mikel Arteta's press conference for that game against Nottingham Forest is tomorrow morning, 9:30 at London Colney. So keep your eyes peeled for all the latest from him on that. I'm sure there'll be questions about Gabriel Martinelli's injury, for example. What's going on with some contracts? Granit Xhaka, I'm sure, will dominate again with all the talk about Granit going. Mikel wasn't very keen to speak about that last weekend in his press conference. He just talked about how happy he is with Granit and how good a season he's having. But as I spoke about in yesterday's video, there's clearly something going on with Granit, and it'll be interesting if Mikel does open up on that a little bit more tomorrow. I'm sure he'll get pressed on it, and maybe about William Saliba as well. Now, Saliba's an interesting one, contract-wise, I think. Obviously, we had lots of talk recently about Bukayo Saka's contract, which we're just waiting for the announcement, basically. Aaron Ramsdale, same sort of thing, just very close to being done. Not sure it's actually signed yet with Aaron Ramsdale, but it's close to being done. There's Odegaard, Ben White, all those players are going to need to be sorted. But Saliba's obviously the most pressing one. Like Saka, Saliba's only got a year left on his contract in the summer, so just 12 months left on his deal. And there's going to be lots of clubs keeping a very close eye on that because all the talk is that Mikel was speaking about it the other day. He was like, it's all about timing. It's all about timing. But the clock is ticking when it comes to William Saliba because you can't really end this summer without Saliba having signed a new contract. You can't go into the new season, surely, with Saliba less than 12 months away from the end of his current deal. It's almost a bit of a sort of elephant in the room type situation with Saliba. No one really wants to talk about it, but if this contract doesn't get sorted in the next 6 weeks, 2 months, maybe before everyone comes back for pre-season, then Arsenal are going to have a big decision to make because there's going to be lots of clubs sniffing around and thinking, you know what, he's got 12 months left on his deal with this blatantly generational, almost quality defender, centre-back, which he's proven in the Premier League this season. Only 12 months left on the deal. Can we get him on the cheap? Bids are going to start coming in for William Saliba this summer if he doesn't sign a new deal pretty quickly, and that's going to leave Arsenal with a decision to make. Is it risky? Is it too much of a risk? Can you afford to lose William Saliba on a free transfer next summer when you spent 27 million to bring him in a few years ago and you've only played him for one season? I don't really think you can. So I think a big decision will have to be made at some point this summer when it comes to Saliba if, and it's a big if, he doesn't sign a new contract. Now, Arsenal are still very, very hopeful that he will. Obviously, that's the sort of word that keeps coming out from Arsenal about it. Mikel, when he spoke about it the other day publicly, was, again, as I said, he was just talking about the timing needs to be right. And that is the case. And Arsenal have got a lot of things they have to sort out contractually. I've already said Saka, Ramsdale, potentially moving on to Ben White, Martin Odegaard. They've just done Martinelli recently. Gabriel was done earlier on in the season. There's lots of contracts that need to sort out, lots of issues that need resolving, but the Saliba one is just an interesting one. I think that I wrote a piece about it today on Goal, and I think what's happened with him being injured in these last sort of 9 games has certainly strengthened their hand, Saliba's camp's hand, even more, in these talks, because they're going to be looking at this thinking, look what happened without Saliba in your team. Results nosedive, the season basically collapsed. That's what he's worth. That's how good he is. So, I'm not saying they're going to go in and smack a number down on the table that's a lot bigger than the one they were originally talking about, but it's certainly strengthened their hands in negotiations. They're in a very strong position. They have all the power, Saliba and his people, right now. And I'm not saying that they're going to use that power, against Arsenal, but it's just the way it works in negotiations. And it's just, I'm intrigued to see how it goes, because at some point this is going to become a thing this summer if it doesn't get signed relatively quickly. And fingers crossed it does, and all this is a sort of moot point, and we can move on and we can look forward to Saliba for another 5 years at Arsenal. But it's an interesting situation, I think, for him, and it's one certainly that's going to keep bubbling away throughout the summer if it doesn't get resolved pretty quickly. So let me know what you guys think on that in the comments below, as always. Okay, elsewhere for Arsenal, Martin Odegaard, Arsenal's captain, has just been named Player of the Month for April. I was just looking through the previous winners of that this year, and it's the first time Odegaard has won it, I think, which is a surprise. Granit Xhaka's won it a couple of times, Zinchenko won it a couple of times, Jesus won it at the start of the season, I think Trossard won it last time out. But for all his good performances this year and his consistency, Odegaard, and his goals, this was the first year he's won it, first month he's won it, and I think he's a deserving winner. He's been brilliant recently, and certainly deserved that award. So congratulations to Martin Odegaard. I saw Charlie Patino was at London Colney yesterday. Patino's future, another midfielder that needs to get sorted out in the coming weeks, that are reported previously. All sort of parties working towards finding a new club for Charlie if decent offer arrives. He's still got a couple of years left on his contract from that option that Arsenal took out, but there's been no talks about fresh terms, so he's just still playing out that original contract that he signed when he first turned professional. And at the moment the club and him and his people are working towards finding a new club, but he's obviously an Arsenal player at the moment, and he was back at London Colney yesterday after that loan spell he had at Blackpool, which was a very successful one. Another successful loan spell is one that Brooke Norton-Cuffy is having at the moment at Coventry. Congratulations to him and to Coventry last night, qualifying for the Championship playoff final, going to Middlesbrough and winning 1-0. What a brilliant result that was. Norton-Cuffy started the games, had a great season, Norton-Cuffy. So he started off at Rotherham, went to Coventry, and now they're in the Championship playoff final, 90 minutes away from the Premier League. It's an amazing Championship playoff final, that one. Luton versus Coventry 5 years ago. I think it was March 2018. Those two played each other in League Two. Now they are both playing in a game that's going to be worth about £120 million to either club if they win and they get themselves promoted to the Premier League. It's remarkable, really, and that's one hell of a story. I know everyone was lauding Manchester City yesterday after that performance in the Champions League, but for me, you sort of look at that and think that's a proper football story, that Luton versus Coventry, two teams that were so close to going under, and Coventry didn't have a home for a while. Luton were in non-league not so long ago, and now suddenly both of them, through nothing but good management, good coaching, some good recruitment and decisions, and they're playing and operating well above their stature right now, and the size of what we all thought possible at the start of the season, now 90 minutes away from the Championship. So good luck to Brooke. That'd be fantastic for him. Ben Sheaf as well, obviously former Arsenal player, also involved in that Coventry team. So I'm sure all Arsenal fans will probably be backing them in the final. All right, that's it from me, everyone. Thank you very much for your time. As always, please do anything you've agreed with, disagreed with in this video, let me know as always in the comments below. And don't forget, tomorrow morning, Mikel Arteta's press conference, 9:30 a.m. at London Colney, as he previews Arsenal's penultimate game of the season against Nottingham Forest on Saturday evening. Have a very good day, everyone. I'll speak to you soon.